So I am with Dean Henry from UAE Peptides, and I'm so interested to speak with you because I keep hearing peptides for skin, peptides for this, and I don't really know what anyone's talking about. It's new territory. And so I'm really excited to have you here. We're going to do Peptides 101, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so what are peptides for me and other people who might be listening?
Okay, a very, very quick biology lesson. So peptides are a chain of amino acids. So basically, when one amino acid bonds to another amino acid, it effectively becomes a peptide. And peptides, some people just refer to them as small proteins, right? Because amino acids eventually turn into proteins, polypeptides, and then proteins. And peptides are found in nature, even in our bodies. The estimate is around about 7,000 peptides we produce in our bodies. And we are going to be discussing peptide bioregulators as well. And how they differ is that a peptide bioregulator is just a chain of 2 to 4 amino acids. So they're a very, very small chain of amino acids. And actually they're found in animals, in meat. So even if you eat meat, you are actually consuming peptide bioregulators, just at a very, very less concentrated form than an actual peptide supplement.
And when you say peptides versus peptide bioregulator, can you describe the function of the peptide? We know what it is now. What does it do? And then a peptide bioregulator, what does that do?
Sure. So peptides in general, they have so many different functionalities. As I say, we produce around about 7,000 of them. So anything from skin, hair, hormones, tissue regeneration, and obviously, as we age, we start to produce less of them. Now, peptide bioregulators are a little bit more focused, and I guess what it says on the tin, bioregulate. So they regulate your biology. They regulate the target area. So, for example, I'm taking the retina bioregulator at the moment. So what that does, it targets the retina because what these peptides are, they're a sequence of amino acids. And then when they go into the body, they try and find that match. So it targets the match of amino acids, which is the retina, right, as it says. And what it does then, it tries to find balance for the retina. So because it's trying to find balance, it's regulating. So it's trying to normalize. So if my vision is poor due to the retina, there might be other reasons, but if it's the retina that's now aged, if you like, then it's going to try and balance and reverse the age of the retina. And that does that for all different 21 peptides we're looking at, from ovaries to heart to blood to brain. So, and it's really interesting. And actually my eyesight got so much better. I've got into a bit of a habit of saying this now, and I need to correct myself because it did fix my eyesight. I was doing that thing where you do that with your eyes, sort of, and after around about 6 months, I stopped doing it. My vision became a lot better. But then peptide is so individual, and I stopped taking them. And actually what I've noticed around about 3-4 weeks ago, my sleep or phone hygiene hasn't been great because I've been traveling, so I've been looking at my phone in the morning, and that doesn't help, right? So now my vision, I've had to start doing that again. So now I need to start the course again, and I'll probably do it a little bit more aggressively this time because this is one of the weakest points that I feel I need to focus on. So sorry, I digressed there, but yeah, that's
No, I love that. As someone, I hit 40 and it went straight downhill, and then it's been eyeglasses ever since. And I do keep hearing that you can actually rejuvenate your eyesight, and it seems impossible, right? Like, it just seems like one of those things we've been told can't happen. So that's very, very, very interesting. So it is very individual. How did you discover this? How did you get into this?
Okay, so this term annoys me. It frustrates me, biohacking. But I've been into health optimization for many years, probably around about 11 years, actually. My daughter was born with a nut allergy 14 years ago. I had a serious sports injury. I also had a disease that they labelled. I can't remember the name now. It seems pointless to label it, but I couldn't swallow food for around about 10 years. And everything was just, it just happens. And actually, once I started to investigate it, everything is a stress response, and everything really starts with the gut. And, that's where my exploration started with functional medicine and therapeutic nutrition. Studied for around about 5 years collectively in those two elements. And then peptide just came up. I was listening to podcasts, as I say, 11 years ago. And there was one peptide called epitolon or epithyolon, which was a Russian generated peptide for reversing aging, basically for extending your telomeres. I'll take that. So, that's what really sparked my interest. And then from there, I've worked with 60 different peptides and I've worked with some VVIPs, and we've really, really explored and, I've gone down many, many rabbit holes with peptides, but it's probably 80% of all I do now, really, for the last sort of 6 years or so.
And if you take peptides, are you still supplementing with other minerals and vitamins and compounds?
I less so, I find, but everybody's different. I don't want to just keep jumping to that cliche, but they are, you'll decide what you want to do. I mean, I have my go-tos. I have a C60 product, which is this is here. It's carbon C60, which is amazing antioxidant. I take that every day. Vitamin D. If I'm not getting sun, then I'll take vitamin D with vitamin K. If I'm feeling a little bit run down, I'll take some high dose of vitamin C. And electrolytes, really, because I do a lot of sports, so I sweat a lot, so I take electrolytes. They're probably my go-to. There's always variants, depending on what I'm trying. I might be trying some sort of different mushroom adaptogen to try and advance my mind when I'm writing a newsletter. All these nootropics, so many different things. But in general, my supplementation is less because of peptides.
And I see on your website you have varieties. It seems for almost everything, like brain, thyroid, muscles. Let's take the thyroid, for example. So many people have low thyroid. A lot of people have Hashimoto's. How can peptides help the thyroid?
Yeah, I like this. I'm glad you've picked on the thyroid, actually, because you don't just have hypothyroidism. Of course, you have hyperthyroidism as well. So hypo being low and hyper being overactive. This is a great explanation for peptide bioregulators, because I mentioned they regulate the target area. So unlike many sort of allopathic medicine, when it finds the thyroid and targets the thyroid, it's going to then work out whether it needs to overact or underactivate the thyroid, because it can work out whether it's hyper or hypo. So for thyroidism, it's an amazing product, actually, and we do see some really quick results with this particular peptide, the thyroid peptide, for that particular reason, because it's finding balance. And that's when it comes to hormone targeted peptides, all it's trying to do is find that balance, right? So once you get the hormone balance, things really do change. You do feel much different.
When you started talking about your own story, I saw you said sort of like, they said I had this, and then you've concluded that everything is a stress response. And the more work we do here at Live Healthy, the more it seems that everything does trace back. You don't just get these things, right? You don't just get hypothyroid. You don't just get Hashimoto's. You don't just get the swallowing problem you had. But when you go to the doctor, they're always kind of like, we don't really know. So I'm just kind of curious about that. Like, so are you, in a way, that it's an imbalance that's being created, and the peptides seek to redress that imbalance? That's essentially what's going on.
Absolutely. So an imbalance that's compounded by some sort of stress over time has created an imbalance. I'd say probably more so for females with hormones, once you start getting closer to 50 or had children, so there's a lot of stress on the hormones. So, I do work with a lot of females, and have done actually for the last 10 years, to be honest, even from gut health up until now, working with peptides. And, there is a lot of stress on the female body post-pregnancy, and then of course pre-menopause as well. So we put these peptide protocols together. The pineal peptide is amazing for the pineal gland at the base, at the bottom of the brain, because we call that the conductor to the orchestra of peptides, and that really tries to help the balance. So because what it's trying to do, number one, is it's trying to regulate your melatonin. So people take that and they feel quite tired. There's the Russian military that actually created the peptides initially in the 1980s. Actually, it was a military secret, a Soviet Union military secret. I love saying that. These particular peptides, they make you tired, because they were saying you don't have any side effects. In fact, you do. The side effect is that if it needs to regenerate or find balance, the best way to do that is by helping you or helping to encourage sleep. And of course, you feel tired. So when you take the pineal, which is trying to balance your circadian rhythm and all your hormones, then you do feel very tired. In fact, when I was taking it the first time, I needed afternoon naps.
Okay. And then did you slowly sort of come out of it?
Yeah, and then after the 10-day cycle, then you just, you feel different, you feel better. Maybe just because you've just got more sleep, right? Maybe just because you've got a deeper sleep. I'm not saying this is a magic pill. Maybe just so that it's encouraged your sleep so much. Now your hormones are better because that sleep is the foundation of health. So, maybe it's just that.
In women, women in their 40s kind of hit this perimenopausal wall. And this, like you said, it's a stress response over time. So we're often told, well, if we take hormone therapy, it will resolve what's going on. Where do peptides fit in with that? Because the peptides are addressing sort of what you're saying is the hormonal imbalance.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can work them, you can do them together. A great example is this is outside of peptide bioregulators. This is more the research peptides that I work on. There's a peptide called kisspeptin, which is a precursor to testosterone. And testosterone is often overlooked in women. I don't know why we're focusing so much on women, but it just is the way it is. And testosterone is quite often overlooked for females because people just don't think it's important, but it's massively important, particularly pre-menopause. And this is when they lose the energy and the drive, because the testosterone is so low. So kisspeptin actually works on the receptors as the precursor to the testosterone. It's the LH and FSH. Now, that's great because actually you're getting closer to the root cause rather than putting a hormone into your body, even if it's bioidentical, which I love. This is great, and they're really helping people. But of course, it's not stimulating your own hormones to work for themselves. It's just replacing it as such. So, the short answer to the question is that they work together very well. Simultaneously, they work together very well.
And same in men, because we're hearing a lot about low T in men. A low testosterone in men, even in their 30s.
Yeah, unreal. I mean, I tested a lot of men, or a lot of people, but a lot of men over the last 6-7 years for their testosterone levels, and it's ridiculous how low they are. It's ridiculous. And actually, also, what's become very common now is I look after a lot of men that have been taking testosterone, as like the bro science to get big, and now they can't generate their own testosterone, or they have no sperm. So I've been working with quite a few men with that as well, actually, recently.
Okay, so first of all, it feels a bit like the Wild West to someone who doesn't know about it. So how, you feel like you want guidance. Like how can you take this with guidance? Because I can just imagine even my doctor, who's quite forward thinking, I'm not sure what she's going to say if I ask her about it. So
just on that, I trained 3 doctors in London last week, and they have an IV anti-aging clinic, and it was so nice because sometimes doctors get a bit of a bad rap, especially in my industry. I remember they are getting a bad rap. You're right; they are getting a bad rap. They definitely are. I mean, it's not really fair. I mean, I remember day one of my therapeutic nutrition course. Day one, paper one was, this is how many deaths malpractice causes a day. I was like, what way to start the course? So I just put my hand up and said, well, how many do they save a day? Come on, I'm sure it outbalances it, right? So the guidance. I trained these 3 doctors last week, and it's lovely because they were very humble, and they said, look, everyone was talking about peptides. I spent an hour just training them on the A to Z of peptides, and they want to start introducing it into their clinic. And it was just nice that some doctors are very open-minded. Some do understand nutrition. Some do understand everything they learned in med school isn't everything. There's so much more to it. So, there's good and bad of all, right? So, and then when it comes to the guidance, there's many books on peptides now. It's a great book here. This is peptide therapy.
Optimize your health with therapeutic peptides. Who's that by?
Yeah, I've got lists of them here. I won't show them all, we'll be here all day, but that's one of the most recent ones.
Okay.
And then I do a peptide coaching on my website as well. So I do a 25 to 30 minute coaching. Just really, you give people an overview, protocols, research, and then it is just about research, and then I guess knowing where to start. And for peptide bioregulators, I simply say that you're only as strong as your weakest part. So for me, I focus heavily on the eyes because I noticed that actually I am getting old. So I focused on the eyes. Some people say, well, actually, I feel perfect. There's nothing wrong with me. Great. But what about your family history? What about genetics? Do anything, did someone in your family have cancer or heart disease? Then, if it's heart disease, then focus on the heart peptide. So just as a starting point.
And we hear all the time about dementia and brain fog. Can peptides have a role? First of all, we hear a lot about brain fog, but within the rising cases of dementia are terrifying everyone, and all the boomers getting dementia. Is there a role for peptides there, like a long-term sort of fixer-upper role?
Yeah, I think we have an understanding, right? Because medicine over the last 100 years has been really focused on sort of everything from here downwards, from the eyes downwards, really focused around the heart and everything else. So the next 100 years, I'm involved with a company called State Mode Medical in the UK, and we actually work with psilocybin for handling neurological diseases, dementia, and the research is amazing. It's now legalized and approved in Australia, so we are actually going to be working with an Australian company now. So over the next 5 years, that's going to become the forefront of medicine, I think, for neurological issues. There's some amazing peptides, Russian-generated peptides, again, that you use intranasally. So C-Max and Solank, they're called, and you take a sprayer a couple of times a day. Number one, it gives you an immediate cognitive boost, but long term, it has been shown to help with such things as dementia. There's also the peptide bioregulators. They have one called the CNS, the central nervous system. Again, that's being researched to help, but immediately, after around 10 days of taking that, you do feel more focused. So I think there's so many nootropics now that have really explored into this area, but over the next 5 to 10 years, I think it's going to be some real advancements.
And what happens if you don't tackle this long-term stress response? Can the peptides still help you? Because there's a lot of people who don't want to change. They just want to, there's biohackers, that are just want to take all the stuff, but don't really want to stop the stress response or do the work, right, to stop the stress response. Can peptides still work if you don't want to change your life?
So glad you asked that question as well. Peptides are not going to work if you don't do all the basics, right? So they're going to help, but if you've just got to get the basics right first. You need to try and be out in the sun, exercise, eat plenty of protein, breathe, meditate, stretch, resistance training, do all the basic things first. And then use peptides as a supplement. It's a supplement at the end of the day. It's a tool. And if you can mirror the two together, then the results are going to be optimized. If you're just going to, take peptides or inject peptides or whatever, then, they may work. But to me, that's a waste of time and money. It's all about optimization, and everything needs to work together to fully optimize.
And are there any cautions? Like, is there any danger here? Is there any side effects?
Peptide bioregulators, which is the key of the discussion, generally no. The great thing about peptide bioregulators is that because it's trying to regulate the target area, once it's regulated, it just goes on its way without any side effects, definitely without any adverse reactions. I mean, that's over millions and millions of test cases as well. So the answer to that one is no. There's no worries there to date. With research peptides, that's a different field really, and that's when you really need to speak to a healthcare professional. All the protocols that are in place at the moment, they've been well researched. No one's really getting any side effects, but a lot of these peptides you take home with you, the injectable peptides, even when you work with the clinics in Dubai, actually, they give you boxes to take home, so you inject yourself. And sometimes people just, I feel great, I'm going to take more. So, we have to be careful here.
Yeah. There's always that person who hears kale is good and eats like 10 pounds of kale a day, right? You can't help those people.
No. Well, that's the poison medicine, right? It's the difference between poison medicine is the dose more often than not.
Yes. Okay. So where do people find you, Dean, and how do they try this stuff?
So we are on UAEPeptides.com. or DN Delta November Lab Research.com. And both of those places, I offer the coaching on the DN Lab site as well. And both those places, you can look at the peptide bioregulators. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your time.